its head, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So that was one thought that was on my mind. So yeah, so if you want to watch that, you can go to drboycetv.com. Also, I do have a podcast on Spotify called the Dr. Boyce Breakdown, and I put up a lot of our content up there as well. And also, if you have an interest in stock options income, making money from stock options, I'm going to do a Q&A for all the Prime members right after this at 11 a.m. Eastern. And so it's not too late to sign up. If you still want to sign up at the discounted rate, you can go to drboyceprime.com, drboyceprime.com, Prime. And we're going to talk. I'm literally going to do a Q&A, and we're going to talk about what's going on with options opportunities. You'd be surprised how much money you can make by selling stock options. I did and this actually makes me think about the political stuff too, because I did a one-on-one with a black man yesterday. Well, pretty much all the people that come and talk to me happen to be black. I never tell white people they can't talk to me. It's just black people just get me, I guess. I don't know if white people are afraid of me or what. I don't hate white people. I don't walk up to them and try to beat them up or anything. But anyway, I was talking to a brother yesterday. He might even be in this room. If you're in this room, just know I respect you a lot, because he was a 56-year-old black man. He looked really young, black don't crack. And he was telling me about all the moves he'd been making in the last few years. And it made me think, it makes me think about this political stuff, because we get really emotionally involved in Democrat versus Republican stuff, to the point where it almost feels like a football game. Like if you are like, I went to Ohio State, that's where I got my doctorate. So if you're an Ohio State fan and you're going to play Michigan, it becomes like a big deal. Or if you are a Cowboys fan and you're playing the Eagles or something, that becomes a big deal. But it's a big deal, but really the question then becomes, in my opinion, is it really going to change your life? Like, if I'm cheering for the Cowboys, which I have for a long time, please pity me, because I deserve the pity, because the Cowboys have been terrible. They always blow it in the playoffs. And literally, it's sort of like, okay, I'm excited about when the Cowboys win, but does that really make a difference in my life? Like, if the Cowboys win, is Jerry Jones going to send me a check? Is he going to help pay my rent? Or I don't have rent, I pay a mortgage, but is Jerry Jones going to, help me have a better life? Is he going to say, congratulate, thank you for being such a great fan. We sent you some money that you can then use to take care of your family. Well, obviously the answer is no. Obviously he's not, there's not much of a real equity stake I have in terms of what happens with the Cowboys. I think he bought the Cowboys for a very small amount of money, relatively speaking, less than $100 million, which is a lot of money, but it's not a lot compared to the current value of about 10 billion. And there was a time where NFL, I think the first Cowboys franchise was purchased for about $25,000 or something like that. And I know the Chicago Bears, which are worth several billion now, could have been bought for $500 when the league first started. So one of the things I've always tried to, the reason I share these stories on a regular basis is because I try to help us really become visionaries, to gain our financial consciousness. And consciousness, part of consciousness is vision, leveling up your perspective so you can see not just what's in front of you, but what things are going to become once they develop. An unconscious person will look at a raw steak and say, "Why would I eat that? That's gross. Ugh, look at it. That's disgusting." A conscious person says, "It looks gross now, but wait until you cook it. You put that thing in the oven for about 45 minutes. It's going to be the most delicious thing you've ever had. If you like meat, maybe you don't like meat, but you get the point, right?" So consciousness is it's the same thing. The same thing is true in investing. A smart, conscious, financially conscious investor, which is why we do economic elevation / financial consciousness every morning. A smart, conscious investor doesn't see what's in front of them. They see what it could be. They can have a vision. So the people who started the NFL had a vision. They said, look, this team is only worth $500 now. The New York Giants are only $200 now, but maybe one day the New York Giants will be worth $2,000. Maybe one day they'll be worth even $10,000. And if it's really crazy, maybe one day you'll be able to sell the New York Giants for $150,000, right? That was a wild, crazy dream back then. Well, guess what? The market value of the New York Giants, I bet you right now, is probably $7 billion. That's a vision they did not have. That wasn't their plan. That was God's plan. God was, or the universe or whatever, said, the economic gods said, no, this thing's going to be bigger than you can imagine. So when you have that sort of consciousness and that elevation and that closeness to the higher power, if you want to call it that, then you're able to kind of trust that, look, if I pour into this, if I invest in this, if I build this, then I can grow this. If I commit to this, then this tiny thing can be big. This weak thing can be strong. This little thing can be great. And I encourage you to think about that in your lives, right? So circling back to the politics, I just really will tell you the truth. I know people who have suffered tremendously under Democratic rule and also suffered under Republican rule. Most people that I know who are not doing well don't end up suddenly doing better when a Republican's in office. Or they don't start suddenly doing better when a Democrat's in office. That I've never seen that. Maybe you know somebody who works for the government. Maybe they got a job in the Obama administration or something like that. I did see actually a few black professionals. Like I remember back in the day, I used to see Roland Martin a lot when we would go on CNN and stuff like that. And he happened to be in Chicago where the Obamas were. So I connected the rise in his career to the rise in the Obamas because when you were in Chicago, the Obamas were just like, 1 degree of separation away. Like I lived 2 blocks down from Barack, a block and a half actually. I could have ran to his house and got there in 30 seconds back even when I was fat. So his big motorcades would come down the street and it was kind of inconvenient because presidential motorcades are crazy. They shut down the whole city and you can't park your car on the street and I'd have to run out in the snow with my pajamas on to get my car before they towed it away because they'd say the president's coming today. And they never told you, right? They didn't tell you what time he's coming or anything. But one day I saw his big motorcade come down and I was kind of proud. I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, okay, look at this black man rolling presidential. How cool is that? And he literally had I counted the number of cars and vehicles. I There were like 37 vehicles in the motorcade. It was the craziest thing I ever saw. I saw 2 limousines. I remember seeing a bunch of motorcycles, 2 ambulances, a couple of fire trucks, big SUVs with guys with AK-47s hanging out the windows, ready to, ready, just waiting for you to start something, right? And it was amazing. It was amazing. But anyway, so I think that Roland Martin rise, when he ended up on CNN for a little while until I guess whatever happened, they parted ways. That was connected to the rise of the Obamas, right? So sometimes every now and then you will see the life of a black person improve because of who's in office, but that typically occurs, unfortunately, for a certain small number of elite or very lucky individuals, right, who are in certain spaces. That does not happen for the masses. That does not happen for the rest of us. So the big question would be, in my view, what happens to the rest of us? What are we going to do for the masses? Give me a yes or no. Have you seen any example where the masses of black people have just their wealth has dramatically increased because somebody new got elected to the White House? Don't make it a Democrat or Republican thing. Just either party, Democrat or Republican. Have you ever seen a time where black wealth suddenly just shot up by 20% or something because of a certain person that was in office? Has that ever happened? I can't think of a time like that. And if there is one, then let me know. But I could be wrong. But I've never seen that before. So what I think about is not so much the football game of Democrat versus Republican. Again, I always tell you I don't care who you vote for because I don't believe it's going to make a difference. Honestly, we had a Trump presidency. The black folks that were struggling under Trump were probably still struggling under Biden. The ones who were doing well under Trump were still doing well under Biden. And that's because there's 2 types of variables. When we would write research papers on finance back when I was in grad school and at Syracuse, there were 2 types of risk, if you will, and they were also defined as 2 types of factors that could drive the value of an asset. There were 2 factors that would drive. By the way, somebody says they can't hear me. Renard says he can't hear me. Can everybody hear me? Give me a quick yes and let me know you can hear me. I want to make sure I'm coming through okay. Okay, I'm sorry, Renard. Somebody say something to Renard in the chat that maybe he's got to turn his computer up or something like that. All right, so basically, there will be 2 variables when the stock price moves. And you think of yourself like a stock, right? When you're doing well, your stock price is high. When you're struggling, your stock price isn't as high as it was before, right? So all of us can be valued as a stock. There are equations I could show you right now that would value your economic potential just like you value a stock. All financial assets in the universe are valued under similar equations. It's called the present value of an annuity equation. You just shift out the variables and you get different numbers. So when we study stock prices and we look at what changes the value of an asset, what moves it, well, there are a couple of types of variables, a couple of categories. One was what they call a systematic factor. That's broad. That affects everybody. That's the rising tide that supposedly lifts all boats. That's the economy. When the economy does bad, a lot of people's economic situation goes down because everybody's struggling. The Great Depression led to a lot of people struggling, although there were some people who did not struggle, right? And that gets to the second category in terms of factors that can move a stock price. And that second set of factors will be what they call idiosyncratic. Now, idiosyncratic factors, let me explain what that means. You'll get this in 1 second. Don't be intimidated by the word at all. Idiosyncratic pretty much means stuff that relates to you specifically. For example, for a stock, an idiosyncratic factor might be who the CEO is, how good the sales team is, how hard the employees are working, how smart the executives are at making decisions. Just things like that, right? That's why certain companies can all be in the same industry. Some will struggle, some will do well because of the idiosyncratic factors. So, what we find in the research when we study stock prices, I promise I'm bringing this back to you. What we find when we study stock prices is that the systematic factors are certainly important. The systematic definitely matters, but it's really the idiosyncratic factors that make the difference. It's the specific stuff, company specific information that matters the most. That's why Martha Stewart went to prison and has to do TV shows with Snoop Dogg because she had company specific idiosyncratic information about a particular company and traded on that information, which is illegal. Okay. So the same way that this applies to stock, this also applies to you. The same way that I can use this same argument to talk about the valuation of a stock price, I can use this to evaluate your quality of life and what your wealth level is. We can use the exact same analogy, exact same equation, exact same logic, exact same everything. So my question to you would be this: look, and this is where I end up probably upsetting some people because I say things that they're not used to hearing. I guess when it comes to politics, is I say, yeah, politics is systematic. That does matter, and you can do what you want to do with that. But what really is going to make the difference in terms of where you end up financially and economically is what you do. It's the choices you make. That's it. I mean, that's just like dating. Some people say I've had a string of horrible relationships. I had 10 terrible girlfriends in a row. You got the whole tribe of men and they blame women for every problem they have. And then you have women that blame men for every problem they have. And it's like, but you had 12 relationships and all of them ended in tragedy. Every single time you got traumatized, every single time every single time you were abused, every single time your baby mama left you, right? It's kind of like, what, don't you see what's happening here? Don't you realize that you're the common denominator? It's not women. Part of that is you. Part of that is your choices. Like, okay, what women did you choose to date? How did you treat them when they said this? You said that. What was in it in your response to it? Right? So that's idiosyncratic. That's the idiosyncratic. So what I'm saying is that I believe, generally speaking, in fact, I know that from talking to so many of you, a lot of you in here are doing really well financially, and I applaud you for that. Some of you are still on the come up. Some of you are picking, plotting your plan to make your move, and I encourage you to be consistent. But I can guarantee you this: when you talk about the quality of life of a Black person, economically speaking, in particular, it is the idiosyncratic factors that matter the most, not so much the systematic. There is no president of the United States, in my opinion, that is ever going to get elected and just suddenly make life wonderful for Black people. And I've never seen a president who could suddenly make life terrible for all Black people. I just haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. I've heard that, I know every election, it's like, oh, yeah, if this person gets elected, we're all going to die. I saw voter die. I saw the whole voter die campaign. I didn't die. And I'm not gonna lie, yeah, I didn't vote for a Democrat or a Republican in that election, and nobody showed up at my house with a gun and shot me. So don't tell Diddy. Maybe he's gonna come to my house because he's been known to go and hurt somebody, right? So my point is to say that, look, I don't care what your politics are. I'm not here to argue with your politics. I'm here to debate you and to encourage you to really think about those idiosyncratic factors that you have that you can manage that will get you to the next level. Again, I talked to a 56-year-old brother yesterday. We did a one-on-one consultation, and he mentioned something that I'd said in 2017, he said it, and I said, yeah, it sounds like something I would say. And he said that I mentioned to him that there are three ways that people get rich in America. Write this down if you don't know this. Write this down if you have a piece of paper. Three ways that people get rich in America. One is through real estate. Two is stock market investing, and three is owning your own business. Those are the three ways that you get rich in America: real estate, stock market investing, owning your own business. And he said that he said I was a professional. I had a great job. He went to a very prestigious university. He had a very nice corporate job, making over six figures. And he said, I looked at my life and realized, man, I'm not doing any of those things. So what he did was he said, at that point, I made a little pivot. So he didn't quit his job. See, this is the thing I want to be real clear about. I've mentioned this before, but forgive me if I have to be redundant because I have to say it for those who are new. I've never told anybody to quit their job. I've never said having a job makes you a sucker. I've never said that you should never work for other people because I'd be a hypocrite. I work for people. I went to speak at a conference 2 days ago, the Power Networking conference. I was working for George Fraser that day. On that day, I was at his service. So there's nothing wrong with working for other people. But as I always mentioned, there's a difference between working for people because you want to versus working for people because you have to. That's it. I just want you out of the trap. That's it. So anyway, what he said he did then was he with his wife, and he's been married over 30 something years. See, this is where the real men are located. They hide us. They hide the real men on TV. They want the little boys on TV. They want the little rappers and goofballs and with eight babies mamas and all the chaos going on. Those are the guys they want to celebrate. That's the culture they want to celebrate. They don't talk about those hardworking men who have loved a woman for a long time, who've raised their kids, who've done a great job with their families. That doesn't really get thrown up there on TV. Barack might be the exception because the Democrats like him, but the rest of us kind of get ignored. Well, anyway, this man has been married to his wife for 32 years. He has two grown children that are both doing extremely well. One was doing something in venture capital, the other one was doing something in banking or engineering. I don't remember, but his kids were doing extremely well. A lot of y'all got families like this, like the Patillo family. I saw Mrs. Patillo the other day. Some of y'all are really getting it in, and I love this. This makes me so proud of you. But then he also said that after that he bought real estate with his wife. Then he started a family. He started buying stock. He said, I saw your $5 a day plan, which by the way, it's for free. It's at blackwealthmasterplan.com. He said, I took you up on that and I started buying stock. And then he said that he started a business in addition to his job. And literally, I didn't ask that particular question, but I got a sense that because he made those tiny pivots, his wealth level has skyrocketed. All I know is he just smiled and said, "We're doing very well," like kind of like that, right? And so I know his wealth has skyrocketed and his income has skyrocketed because he made those little pivots. He made those idiosyncratic choices. He didn't sit around and say, "Gosh, if Trump gets elected, I can never get this done." He didn't say if Biden gets in office, then that's going to just ruin everything for me. He didn't say that. He didn't say, oh, well, if we elect Obama again, then that's going to really open doors for me. He didn't say any of that. He said, as a man, as a the powerful man that I am, man is short for manifest. Men have lots of power. We have lots of power. We have so much power, and it's very important to understand that power so you know how to use it in a way that helps people as opposed to hurts them. He said, as a man, I have certain choices I can make, and I'm going to make those choices. Because remember, I've never met a white man who told me I could not read a book. I've never met a white man who told me I could not save my money. I've never met a white man who told me I could not take care of my kids. I've never met a white man who told me I had to eat Popeye's chicken and die from a heart attack, at the age of 50. None of that, right? So my point is to say that there are many, many degrees of freedom that we do have, and this affects these idiosyncrasies. There's that word. That's the word for today. Idiosyncratic, idiosyncrasies. Those person-specific, individualized choices I can make that are going to have a market and direct impact on my life. So focus on the idiosyncrasies. That's what's going to get you ahead. I know it works. This is not theory. This is practice. Because every day, every single day, pretty much, I'm doing a one-on-one with students or families, and they're doing it. I've seen their wealth levels rise, and it's because they're applying principles of strong economics. You get away from you get away from renting and spending and borrowing and just always being the employee to putting yourself in situations where you are the owner, you are the boss, you are the investor. See, these are the people that do well. And in fact, actually, I'm gonna move to my next point that I wanted to talk about today, because I want to finish up a little bit early because we're going to do our stock options Q&A at 11 o'clock Eastern. So again, if you want to join, it's for the Prime members. If you want to join Prime, just go to drboyceprime.com, drboyceprime.com. It's not too late to join. I'll email out the invitation one more time so you guys can join if you want to come on in. All right. So the other point on this is this. I was thinking this morning, I told you guys for financial consciousness, I always just sort of listen to financial news and think about things and sit on the treadmill and stuff comes to me. So here's something that came to me today. I was listening to Larry Summers speak on NPR. And Larry Summers is a smart economist. I remember reading his research papers when I was in graduate school. He became the president of Harvard University. He comes from an elite family. He has uncles, and I think his uncle and his dad were both really good economists too. And I don't even, I think he worked for Obama, but he's kind of been accused of racism actually. When he was at least when he was at Harvard, he hated Cornel West. I remember he and Cornel West used to go at it, and that made me unhappy with him because I like Cornel West. I know him personally, and this man is just one of the most decent human beings I've ever met, and I really felt that way about him. I don't care what his politics are, but anyway, but Lawrence Summers was talking about the Federal Reserve and inflation. And as you know, in the economy, the biggest battle for the last 2 or 3 years has been ways to reduce the out of control inflation that has gripped the economy since the pandemic. It was horrible and it was very predictable. A lot of prices just started shooting up like crazy, and inflation is a hard cat to get back in the bag. It's like the cat that runs out the front door. Once you let the cat out the front door, if it's a quick cat, you're gonna be chasing that thing all day. That's what inflation does. Inflation is just the cat out the door that's running up and down the street and can't nobody catch it. And you're diving in the mud and it's really, really hard. So you don't let inflation get out of control, right? But we did. And they've been working to get it down for the last couple of years. Well, one thing that was interesting was that they asked him this very interesting question I thought I would bring up today. They said, if the Fed is saying that inflation is under control, because that's what they've been announcing, is that the other day, a lot of you that own some of the stocks that we talk about in the Prime program, you probably saw some of those stocks go up because inflation went down. And when inflation goes down, it does other things to the 10-year treasury yield that can cause those stocks, those long duration assets to go up. Don't worry about what all that means. It's just that's what it is. So so inflation is pretty much getting under control to some extent. I think they got it down to about 3%. The Fed's target is 2%. And so they asked Larry Summers, they said, so if inflation is under control and the Fed is saying that it's under control, why are people still feeling like inflation is high? Why do they feel like the prices are high? Why are they still getting sticker shock? Why is it that people are very upset? Because things like the cost of insurance has skyrocketed. The cost of groceries is still very, very high. Like what's the disconnect? And he made a very simple point that I wanted to mention to you all is that he said reducing inflation does not mean that prices go down. Reducing inflation does not mean prices are going to go down. Reducing inflation means that prices are still going up. They're just going up at a slower pace than they were before. See, when prices go down, that is called deflation. Deflation almost never happens. And when it does, actually, you're kind of in trouble. That's like an economy. That's like driving on a car with flat tires. When you have deflation, that's called a recession, right? So, or maybe a depression. The Great Depression had a lot of deflation. And be quite honest with you, you really don't want extensive deflation because that's deflation of everything. That means deflation of your wages, deflation of your property values, all that, right? So deflation doesn't happen that often, and that's not what they're aiming for. What they're aiming for is what is called disinflation. That means you still have inflation, you just don't have as much inflation as you had before. Instead of 8% inflation, you have 2% or 3%. Ideally, it's 2%. That's what they claim is their target. Right now, it's about 3. Okay. So here's the thing about inflation. So to give you a final visual to help you understand it, to drive it home, uh, deflate. Imagine you're in a car and the car's driving in the wrong direction, and you get concerned about the car driving in the wrong direction. It's going 80 miles an hour in the wrong direction. Deflation would be stopping the car and going backward, right? It would be literally going back, in the other direction. Disinflation means you're still driving in that direction, but instead of going 80 or 90 miles an hour, you're only going 30 miles an hour. So you're still moving forward, you're just slowing down as opposed to stopping and turning around and going in the other direction. Do you understand? Give me a yes if you get that. Give me a yes if that makes sense. Because now, if that concept has sunk in, I'm going to give you another quick little note on why inflation affects different people in different ways, and this is why you want to be an investor. See, what people don't understand about inflation is that everybody doesn't hate inflation. Everybody, there's some people who see inflation and they're like, yeah, that's good. Wealthy people tend to benefit from inflation actually in many, many cases. And the number one way that wealthy people benefit from inflation is because they are in a position of being investors and not just consumers, or they produce products, they make investments, they own assets. They're not the people that are just only buying things and renting things and working for other people as employees. See, so what happens is that inflation benefits wealthy people generally through something called asset inflation. That's very simple to understand. It means that if you own real estate or stocks, typically in an inflationary environment, you'll see your real estate value shoot through the roof. The value that how when the average home value went from two something to 400,000 a year, anybody who owned a home received so much wealth, so much of a windfall from the growth in the value of their home that they don't care that the price of carrots is now $3 instead of two. They because they got an extra $200,000 in home equity to make up the difference. But what if you're not a homeowner? What if you're a renter? A lot of us are renters, and we know this. A lot of us, and again, this is where economic culture comes into play. I talk about culture a lot in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. If your culture is that of a renter, then yeah, you're getting hammered. You're it's like you're getting the bad stuff, but you don't get the good stuff. You're getting, for some people, it's no pain, no gain. For some people, it's just no pain, no pain, meaning that you're getting the pain, but you're getting none of the gain. Right. So asset inflation actually tends to exceed regular inflation. So if you want your wealth to keep up with inflation, you have to be an investor. This is not optional. This is not something to think about. This is not something you do in your spare time with your extra money. This investing needs to be as fundamental to your economic strategy as paying your bills. It has to be as fundamental as paying off the cell phone. It has to be as fundamental as paying the car note. Investing has to be a part of your family culture at a deep-seated level so that when inflation does hit, which it's never going to go away, your family's wealth is able to rise in a way that compensates you for what you're losing when you go to the grocery store and everything's a little more expensive. Also, they have something called debt devaluation. When inflation happens, the value of the dollar drops. So if you are in debt, then the amount of debt that you have to repay drops because of inflation. So now debt is one of those mixed bags. Debt can be good, it can be bad. A lot of wealthy people have a lot of debt. A lot of wealthy people borrow stuff. That's how they get control of assets that allow them to make money. I've never told you all that debt is bad. I think debt can be wonderful if you know how to use it properly, but it's terrible if you waste it. So it's just like a boxer gaining weight, or an athlete, or any athlete gaining weight. Gaining weight is not always bad, and gaining weight is not always good. The question is, are you gaining muscle or are you gaining fat? If you gain another 20 pounds of fat, then yeah, you're gonna stink. You're gonna be terrible at what you do. But if you gain 20 pounds of muscle, it might make you far more effective. So wealthy people that understand investing are able to use debt as a form of economic muscle. They say, let me acquire some debt so I can go acquire an asset that's going to bring me more money in than what I'm paying in interest. So every month I'm paying 5,000 a month in interest, but I'm making 20,000 a month from the ownership of this asset. So I'm winning from that. Now, if you take on that debt so you can go on vacation and go to the Gucci store, then guess what? You might as well be spending your time at Diddy parties because you're basically screwing yourself. That's what you're doing. You're screwing yourself, you're screwing your future, you're putting yourself into an economic jail. But that's what they pretty much encourage consumers to do. Go get that credit card so you can go to the mall and max that sucker up, and then you're paying debt in a different sort of capacity. Okay. Also, another thing that wealthy people are able to do when it comes to inflation is because they own businesses, a lot of companies are able to pass the additional inflation on to the consumer. So one thing that you saw with big brands like Procter and Gamble and stuff like that was they were being accused of something called shrinkflation. Anybody heard of shrinkflation? How many of you have heard of shrinkflation? Shrinkflation is basically where they were selling you the same stuff but charging you more money, or they were charging the same price but shrinking the size of the bag. So before you got, 12 ounces of Oreos or something for $3. So they said, okay, what if we still charge $3, but instead of giving them 12 ounces of Oreos, we'll just give them 10 ounces and they won't notice. They did the same thing with potato chips, pretty much everything. And it worked. People just didn't care. They didn't notice and they would still pay the same price. So they were able to sneakily pass that additional cost burden onto the consumer, and the consumers they complained about it, but they kept buying the stuff. They didn't, people are still, remember, they're addicted. A lot of this food is very addictive, actually. I think it's designed to be that way. So they, if you charge an extra 10%, if you charge a crackhead 10% more for the crack, You really think they're gonna stop shopping at the drug dealer's corner? You really think they're gonna stop picking up their morning crack? No. So the addiction to sugar is real. We know that, right? So another way that wealthy people can benefit from inflation. So never ever think that inflation's bad for everybody or that it affects everybody in the exact same way. What you want to do is have a strategy to position yourself and your family in a way where you're going to be able to get the rewards that come with this economy. Inflation it wouldn't harm workers as much if companies simply had rules that said, for example, that they have to give you raises that match the rate of inflation. That would be huge. But they won't do that. Why? Well, because members of Congress, those are rich people. They're beholden to Wall Street. They're beholden to corporate America. They're not beholden to the voters. You really think they're working for the voters? No, the voters are the commodity. They're the commodity. So what happens is a wealthy person goes to a politician. They say, if you do what we say, we'll give you a bunch of money so you can get all the sheep to come vote for you. Because we know that if you run more ads than your opponent, you're going to get more votes. So we'll fund you, and as long as you understand who you work for, you don't work for the voters. The voters are simply responding to marketing tactics that we're going to help you put in place. You answer to us because we're the ones who are going to give you the money to get you in front of the voters. And if you don't do that, then guess what? We'll go fund your opponent. So, for example, people were wondering why the government decided to send $100 billion to Israel and Ukraine in order to fund these wars that nobody I know is supporting. Like, I don't know anybody who's like, yeah, I want to. The top priority for America needs to be to send $100 billion to Israel so they can continue to do whatever the hell they're doing over there with the Palestinians. I don't know any people who think that way. I don't care if you're or pro Israel or pro Palestine. I'm not saying that one way or the other. I don't know a single person anywhere who said that should be our number one priority over reparations and fixing the infrastructure and homelessness. If we got the educational system, there's so many other ways to invest the money, but for some reason somebody decided to send $100 billion out of the country. Well, where do you think that comes from? Well, let me give you an example. There was one black politician out of Ohio, I believe, who basically spoke up against the I think it was the Anti-Defamation League or APAC. I think it's called APAC. And they lobby for Israel. And she spoke against them. She was like literally one of out of 100 senators who spoke up against it, or maybe she was in Congress. I can't remember. It was something like that. I just forgive me if I get a couple of the numbers wrong. So what they did was they went and they found another black woman in Ohio, and they said, "We're going to fund your opponent to get you out of office." And they replaced one black girl with another one. And this second black girl, surprise, surprise, was 100% pro-Israel no matter what. Right. So this is how the money drives everything. And this is why it's so important in America to understand money. See, understanding money really is one of the keys to everything. It's not it's not the key to happiness. Right. It's not, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying worship money. I want to make sure you get this. Right. You don't worship money. Money is not a destination. Money is simply a tool. Money is simply a bridge. Money is a little bit of a liberator from what's sort of being done to you. It's an antidote to the virus that's put into you. And the viruses that are put into you are things like financial desperation. When they put the financial desperation virus into you, they inject that into you very early by making you into a consumer, by training you to be an employee, training you to be a renter, and training you to go into so much debt that you can't stay in bed in the morning. You have to get up and go to work. So financial desperation is the virus. The antidote is financial security. If you have financial security that will overcome your financial desperation, then you then have the ability to get to the business of living your life and living your purpose. Remember, you got your plan, Master's plan, and God's plan, right? So Master's plan is the worst for you. Your plan is the best for you, but really God's plan is the actual best for you. And that requires consciousness. You have to have a closeness to God, if you want to call it that, in order for you to even see what the plan is. Some of the plan won't even be revealed until you've actually lived it, until you've gotten up every day and followed certain principles like doing my best, believing in myself, meditation, focusing on doing the right things for the people that I love. If you do all these things and you do that over a long period of time, what will happen, I guarantee you this, is that your life is going to become something that's going to be even greater than anything you even imagine. Remember, when the founders of the NFL were selling the Chicago Bears for $500 and the New York Giants for $50, they didn't have a vision that these teams would be worth billions of dollars. Their greatest hope, their plan was maybe one day these teams are going to be worth $5,000 a piece, maybe $10,000 a piece. Oh my God, that would be amazing. That's what they were thinking. They couldn't visualize what the universe had in store for them 100 years later, right? But look at what we have now. Look at the NFL now. So what I want you to do is I want you to just really First of all, really identify what you consider to be master's plan, meaning the plan of somebody that is not you, the plan of somebody outside of your family, outside of your community, who's controlling you with money, using the virus of financial desperation and economic fear to almost like zombify you and force you to do things that you really don't want to do. You got to get rid of that. The antidote is financial security, wealth building, things like that. Then you can start to formulate your plan. But the reason that you also want to be financially conscious is so that you don't just become some goofy rich person who's doing a bunch of stupid things with their money, hurting people with your money, wasting your money, living a ratchet, goofy lifestyle. There's so many people out here. I kid you not. I hate saying it like this, but there's so many people. If you watch the BET Awards, you're gonna see a whole bunch of rich people who are really swimming in toxic, horrible culture. They're literally losing wealth in ways that they can't even imagine. Not financial wealth. They're losing things that are more important than financial wealth. You talk about losing your health, losing your physical and mental health, destroying your relationships. I like, for example, a lot of rich rappers think that they're doing well because mama, look at me, I made my dream, I'm living my dream now. And then next thing you know, you see the headline where Lil Pookie Run got shot, in the grocery store, because your dream puts you in a space where rappers should get hazard pay because they're dying every single week. Or you get signed by Gucci Mane. Anybody see that the rapper Gucci Mane had $1 million in the studio and he was really showing all these people how much money they would make if they were artists like signed with him. And then people in the comments I think the consciousness level of the community is growing. I think the financial consciousness level is growing because a lot of people made the very polite remark where they said, you do know that a lot of your artists are dead now, or in prison. So don't take the money. That's what people were saying, and I think I thought that was great. I'm like, thank God people aren't just gonna get lured by somebody waving a couple of dollars in their face. That's not you. You got to think about the whole picture. You got to have a holistic approach to wealth building. That's the best way to approach it because $10 million in your bank account won't mean anything if you are miserable, your kids hate you, your health is depleting, you're half crazy, worked half to death. Like none of that is gonna matter. Like money won't fix that. Money won't fix that. So I want you to go make your money. As I say, I was thinking about making money the fly away. Remember that song? I told you I met the rapper who made that song. I went to Willie D's thing down in Houston, and Lil Troy, I think that was his name. He follows. He's like on the platform. I was like, yeah. And he told me the song. I was like, I love that song. Right? I want to be a baller, shot caller. Right? So to me, when I think about making the money the fly away, there really has got to be a better way. And to me, the best way, the flyway, is when you're making money in a space where you are free, where you are happy, where you are loved, and you are giving love to others. You're elevating the people around you. You are multiplying yourself in beautiful ways, and you're really living a fulfilled existence. See, and I saw something today. I put it on my Twitter and made me think. And I saw someone who said that the definition of hell is to be on your deathbed and to see the person that you could have become if you went ahead and made the sacrifices while you were young. The definition of hell is to run into the version of yourself that you could have been if you had quit messing around and got busy and put into work, stopped being scared, and made your move. And that goes back to in the very beginning, we're talking about the idiosyncratic stuff. I personally think a lot of the election talk and stuff is a distraction. I encourage you, like, don't waste your time. We will all be on our deathbed at some point. It's become very aware to me because my wife works in hospice now. She comes back and tells me these terrible stories about people that are in their 40s who are in hospice, 30s even. My wife, sorry, my sister does autopsies, and she said that her moment of consciousness came when she was doing autopsies in Chicago, and she was seeing people that were laying there as dead bodies who were just like her, younger than her, who had a full schedule, who were planning to do all these things with their lives, and were eventually going to get around to this and get around to that, but didn't know that day they were going to slip and fall and down the steps and die. She saw this stuff, right? So sometimes facing that, seeing that, can really help you to understand the blessing that is in front of you. The blessing that you have in front of you is that you're here with me right now, and we have a chance to change everything. Right now, in this moment, we have a chance to do anything that we want to do, make it into whatever we want it to be. So every single day is a blessing and it's an opportunity. And I really want to challenge you to use today as that opportunity to go ahead and make that little pivot, like the brother I talked to yesterday. And literally 7 years after he made that pivot, he said he's now flying high financially. And I was so happy to see that. And I want that for everybody. I want all of you to be winning. Okay. All right. So anyway, I gotta go. I got 18 minutes to get ready for our Q&A on stock options. If you still want to join, you can go sign up at drboyceprime.com. And once you log in the curriculum section, there's a link to join the Q&A. We're going to talk about stock options and generating income from stock options. The program doesn't cost much, but we can't do that for free just because the Black Business School, we raise money and we have to be independent. But if you'd like to join, feel free to go to drboyceprime.com. Also, if you're not on the email or the text list to get money in the morning invitations, just text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text morning to 87948, and I will see you all soon. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you later.